Hello everyone, Waxo here. Before getting to the review, I want to say that this video style is going to be a bit different from what you expect from me typically. With this video, and moving forward with multiplayer-centric titles, I plan on taking the sort of casual discussion approach. More story-centric titles though will be on par with my prior reviews. To give a direct example, this in Battlefield will follow a similar approach, while Halo will be reminiscent to my older videos. Also, if the quality of upcoming projects is a bit weird, I ask for a little bit of patience. I'm currently trying to learn 2 new audio and editing software, and I'm still trying to get a solid workflow between them. Obviously, if there's issues, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Without further ado though, let's talk about Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood is a cooperative first-person shooter set during a zombie apocalypse of mysterious origin. You and up to 3 friends team up in an effort to thin the zombie hordes and bring the plague to an end. And though that might be a description that could be placed on literally any other zombie game to come out within the last decade or so, what makes Back 4 Blood special is in-developer Totorock Studio, who are the original developers to the widely popular and critically acclaimed Left 4 Dead. And for those who haven't played Left 4 Dead, during its heyday, it was sort of a gaming phenomena that remains pretty popular to this day, 13 years later. I personally remember playing it overnight with friends until the sun rose the next day. And the reason why knowing what Left 4 Dead is important to talking about Back 4 Blood is because it's actually meant to serve as a spiritual successor since Totorock has split from Valve, even going as far as copying the naming convention. And though I was initially excited seeing Totorock returning to this genre that they've essentially kickstarted years before, I was also a bit cautious since their last project, Evolve, was essentially a blundered mess from its launch to its eventual shutting down back in 2018. So with that bit of background, the question now is, how exactly is Back 4 Blood then? Does it improve on the groundwork laid by its predecessors, and does it elevate the genre that Totorock created all those years ago? Let's start off with looking at the story for Back 4 Blood. The game starts off after a parasite known as the Devil Worm has infected millions, if not billions, inflicting those possessed by the deadly worms with a zombie-like nature. The zombified afflicted are then dubbed the Ridden and are the quick-footed common bad guys you'll be fighting throughout. The player chooses one of the 8 selectable cleaners, 4 of which are locked until hitting about the halfway mark of the first act, who are normal everyday people turned zombie killing experts, and are tasked by the head of their base of operations, known as Fort Hope, to help those in need and eventually help a scientist who may have a way of ridding the deadly parasite. And really, there's not a whole lot more outside of that. I'll admit that is an interesting concept, but the fact that most of the storytelling comes from listening to NPCs in the background through 4 acts, 3 of which have 10 sections each, an issue that is a hassle when you have impatient teammates, is rather disappointing. Also, the writing here is serviceable at best, but dialogue between characters can be downright awful at times. Whether it be Holly's question about shooting fish in a barrel, Mom's simile of the Ridden to a baboon's posterior, and Evangelo. Just the entirety of Evangelo. I swear if I hear I'll get back to fighting once I get the bullets back into the gun one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. That's another thing about Back 4 Blood. The characters are meant to have these various personalities, and they do. However, most of them are these blatant cliches without ever elevating past that. For instance, Walker's a retired soldier who doesn't talk much, and when he does, sounds like every Will Smith character ever. Hoffman's the doomsday prepper, and that pretty much sums him up. And Doc mentions something medical related in every other sentence. And though some care does slip into the characterization and dialogue every now and then, such as Mom talking about losing her son, or Walker being a loner who doesn't have anybody to lose, those moments are few and far between, to the point that I'm pretty sure I haven't heard any sort of background for the majority of the other characters. Moving on to gameplay, again, Back 4 Blood follows a 4-act structure in which 3 acts are broken into 10 parts. Each act takes players through different environments ranging from the inner city, small towns, and farmland. These sections are often straightforward treks from one safe room to the next, while some may have you defend objectives for a period of time or deliver certain items. The variety does help break up monotony somewhat, but with the little variation there is, levels do admittedly feel repetitive, though that's arguably a fault of the genre rather than Back 4 Blood specifically. Enemy variety, however, is what really stands out. Outside of the standard Ridden, there are also special mutations that are more difficult to fight. Mutations are generally tougher and can deal pretty significant damage to you and your squad mates, whether it's separating you from the rest of your pals via the Hawker's web-like spit, the Tall Boy's mean right hook, and so forth. There are also boss mutations that act as roadblocks every now and then, but are usually spaced out due to them being tied to corruption card draws. More on those in a bit, but it keeps them from getting too repetitive. Those bosses include the Ogre, a towering mutation that, when it's not throwing giant balls of itself at you, can throw you instead, which can lead you being down and in need of revival. The Breaker, who's also pretty large, armored, and surprisingly agile, and the Hag, which I swear will serve as nightmare fuel for years to come. The Hag is a creature that can be bypassed, but if startled, which is done by either getting too close to it or with its shot, will grab the nearest character, swallow them whole, and if not shot and killed in time, will dig into the ground, instantly killing the person it consumed, and will reappear later in the level to eat another one of the cleaners. To digress a bit to talk about the game's repetitive nature, the inclusion of corruption cards acts as a way to change that monotony as well. Corruption cards are chosen by the in-game AI and can add challenges, change the environments by adding fog, making it dark, or littering the level with horde alerting birds, making enemies more difficult, and add varying parameters like cleaners can only go down a certain number of times, or completing a section in a certain amount of time. By completing challenge cards, you are rewarded either supply points, more on those later, gold, which is an in-game currency you spend at the start of each section in order to grab boosts for your team, better weapons, attachments, and other items to ensure your survival until the next safe room, or even both, depending on the challenge. And though I can say that I was skeptical of the cards at first, they really do help with adding both depth, suspense, and much needed variety, though maybe banking a little too heavily on those cards to provide the general lack thereof. Players can also choose from their own custom created deck of cards before each part within an act. Cards often give yourself or your team a status boost of some sort, ranging from increased health and resistance to trauma, extra offensive items, or better ammo capacity for you and your team. Some cards also will allow for you to take some sort of debuff for the sake of a greater boost elsewhere. And though I'm certainly not against player cards, since they, like the corruption cards, add on positively to the experience with their various buffs, a part of me wishes that there was a more permanent character progression system along with the cards as a means to complement one another. My reasoning here is since the cleaners already have a sort of base attribute to them, such as Mom's ability to instantly revive a character once per section, maybe that could have been built off more, like with a skill tree system, with the cards further complementing those skills that you choose. With that, let's actually talk about the general progression. Progression is done through supply lines, which require the supply points you are rewarded for completing sections and challenges within an act. Supply lines allow you to unlock weapon skins, character skins, emblems, and cards for your deck. And that's about it. Honestly, this doesn't come off like a very good hook to keep players returning to the game, as it largely skips creating a sense of actual progress, instead feeling like you're dumping points just cause. This could have been mitigated had there been some sort of stat-based reward system that also unlocked items, like say you play X amount of games or get X amount of kills with a cleaner or a weapon to unlock skins, with supply lines acting as a way to unlock cards and emblems. With how it works here, however, it just doesn't feel very rewarding. Moving on to combat, which you'll be doing a lot of, whether it's shooting, stabbing, or baseball bat swinging. There's a variety of weapons, from AKs to machetes, and though recoil and weapon handling isn't at all that challenging, it is a change from its predecessors, which was a more arena shooter like shoot where you aim system, even adding the ability to aim down sights this time around. To keep control of your firearm or change them to better suit your playstyle, there's a good amount of weapon attachments, be it silencers, stocks, laser designators, red dot sights, and sniper scopes. There's plenty of options available. Now let's talk about the difficulty to Back 4 Blood, which is frustrating to say the least. The base veteran difficulty is hard as hell, and while I'm all for games being difficult, often enjoying those that are, I can easily see that being immediately off-putting for those hopping into this for the first time. What's worse is that the easier difficulty actually punishes you for playing on it by rewarding less supply points and restricting which corruption cards come up in play, essentially lessening the overall experience. It should be noted that there is a single player option in Back 4 Blood, but I'm going to be absolutely honest. If you're looking to get into this for a solely single player experience, you're better off taking your $60+ elsewhere. And I don't mean that in a gatekeeper sort of way, but rather you just won't enjoy this experience. The cleaner AI is bad, like downright terrible at times. They may help you if you're pinned or stuck by a hawker, but not without staring at you before doing so, and objectives fall squarely on you. One mission I know has you carrying 2 crates from the starting point to a restaurant, and though it's not an incredibly long journey journey, you will have to do that on your own, and hope that the AI makes sure you don't die along the way. Playing in single player will allow you to progress through the story if you just want to get through in order to have the acts open for co-op, but all achievements and trophies attached to beating those can only be earned while playing online. On the other side of the cooperative experience, there is a competitive mode called Swarm, which pits two teams against each other, one on the side of the cleaners while the other are the mutations. Those on the side of the cleaners must hold out against both hordes of the common infected, player-controlled mutations, and a decreasing player area size. The goal of the cleaners is to try and last as long as they can, and when they do die, switch sides with the other team and must eliminate them before they can beat their own set time. And while I don't personally see myself playing this mode all that frequently, it does seem like a pretty fun diversion. You can even create custom decks for the mode on the cleaner side, while mutations can upgrade themselves in game. Overall, though I may have sounded like my time with Back 4 Blood was mostly negative, I actually do really enjoy it. It feels like a proper third entry to Left 4 Dead after all these years. I like the gunplay, the card system, and general gameplay, from fighting through an especially difficult horde to just making it to the final safe room within an inch of my life. With Left 4 Dead being one of my all-time favorites, however, I just sort of expected more from Turtle Rock after all this time. Though it's a game that evolves the Left 4 Dead formula, it doesn't further innovate the genre they've created, arguably being outdone by games like Warhammer Vermintide and World War Z. Admittedly, I'm sort of on the fence when it comes to recommending Back 4 Blood at its asking price. Even though I do think it's great fun when it hits its stride, I also think the lack of progression outside of the supply lines, the mostly simplistic level and mission design, and subsequently the over-reliance on corruption cards, and the truly lackluster single player work strongly against it. If you have Game Pass on Xbox or PC, I will definitely recommend trying this out with friends and seeing if you enjoy it. But for those outside of that market, it is very hard to recommend dropping $60+ on. And those looking for a single player experience, I simply suggest looking elsewhere. Though Turtle Rock has said that they will be addressing single player progression, its current state is just to be steered clear of. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. Have any questions or complaints, leave a comment down below, and if you're new, subscribe for more gaming related content and reviews, especially as we enter this last stretch of major titles in the year. This has been Waxo, and until next time, take it easy.